Good morning, it's David doing the weekly podcast, and this week I really want to talk about the minimum wage. So, I guess what we need to start with is that um, this has been over 20 years, I believe, since we've looked at the minimum wage. And remember how it was going to be the end of the world when we raised the minimum wage to like $7.15 or 25 cents? It didn't end the world. It didn't cause huge gaps. The problem has been that honestly, there's been no real increase in people's wages in years because there's no need to. What has happened is that the employers just said, hey, we don't have to pay someone a decent wage because both people are working now. We can just never give a raise years and years without raising anything because there's two people now working. And so instead of having one person being able to stay home and one person work, it forced people to both work, and everybody's been at minimum wage. I guess one of the things is that when you think about minimum wage, I guess the traditional, oh, fast food comes to mind. But we're not talking about just fast food. We're talking about people who work in banks, the person who's working at the department store, people who are working as caregivers. Nobody's making a lot of money. And, you know, people who are going to get the $15 increase, they're already on the edge. They're, well, the best way to put it is my story about McDonald's got busted because on their website, they posted information on how their employees could file for food stamps because they knew that they were paying them so little they would have to supplement that income with food stamps. Well, that's ridiculous, folks. The idea that somehow these people don't deserve $15 an hour because their occupations aren't, I don't know, prestigious enough, that's a bunch of malarkey. It doesn't hurt you if somebody else is making more money. You're making the same amount. And my skills. Again, do you think you could walk into any fast food restaurant tomorrow, punch 3 buttons, and set the whole store up on automatic and you could run it without... Yeah, see, it's a ridiculous thing. It's not easy work. I, for one, have always thought it was ridiculous that CEOs got paid millions of dollars and didn't work 1/10 as hard as a guy with a shovel. So, and then on top of it, after 20 years without an increase, nobody's getting this increase right away. It's spread out over time to get to $15. You know, the question will be what's going to go on with the economy and what will that mean? Will we go back to the good old days? You hear good old days, you know, make America great again. Well, that was when unions were strong. All right? There used to be a time when people who were factory workers, nobody felt they were worthy of decent wages either. They could work themselves to death in the factory, but they couldn't make any money at it. And so then the union stepped in, and they made those jobs what they really should have been, prestigious. And all we're doing here, when you're doing the $15 an hour minimum wage, is recognizing people's value. If you want to make America great again, go back to when people were middle class and had money and made... I have a friend who worked in grocery in the 60s, and she made $10.80 an hour in the 60s when a car was $500 and a house was $5,000. Okay? So how minimum wage is now $12 an hour? how does that even in any way seem equitable? It's not. It's time to force corporations. And if you want a real economic thing, you bitch about your taxes and people on food stamps. So here are a bunch of people who work full-time 40-hour-a-week jobs and still qualify for food stamps. And you don't think there's a problem with the minimum wage being where it's at? So I'm just a little bit confused about the whole thing. People who work hard deserve a decent wage. They deserve to be able to go home and feed their families and not have to rely on the government and the taxpayers to supplement their income. When you say people don't deserve $15 an hour, what you're saying is, hey, I want to pay your wages. I want to give you food stamps every single month because your employer doesn't want to pay you, so I, as a taxpayer, should make up that. And you, making minimum wage, in the irony of all ironies, are paying taxes. You know? So I think it's time for everybody to stop the nonsense and get behind a $15 an hour minimum wage. Giving people more money is never a bad thing. Being, giving them the ability to send their children to college and buy a house, that's the American dream. And it's so unreachable where we are now. But if we want a better educated generation, we need to pay people enough money that they can afford things, like school lunches and dinner. So many kids rely on the school system for free meals, and this is all a result of the fact that corporate America has convinced you that these people are not worthy of a decent wage, that no matter how hard they work, they're just never going to be as cool as you, and that you should remember that every cent they get is stolen directly from your pocket, not the corporation's pocket. They don't want you to look at that part. They want to look at you. And when it comes to small businesses, yes, I know small businesses will struggle. That's why it's graded. Anyway, just to give you an idea, I've worked so many jobs where my time has been billed out at $100 an hour or more. Or I've worked for a company that, does some sort of manual labor, and they're getting $65 a man hour. Well, those guys are making $7.50. So there is room for these people to pay them a decent wage. And the idea that they can't, it's ridiculous. So I guess I'm done rambling and ranting with my socialist BS. But the truth of the matter is just that this minimum wage is important. We need to get it in place. Because, even as you're sitting there going, well, I have a fat $35 an hour job. Yeah? Well, what are your kids looking at? Your $35 an hour job isn't going to guarantee them diddly squat. So, again, rant over. Y'all have a nice day, and I'll see you next week. Bye now.